Mike Giardi does not live in his mother's basement.
That is not Mike Giardi, no.
That was not nice, Ted Johnson.
But Mike does he do a mock draft?
He does.
And maybe he does live in his mom's basement. I don't know.
I think
I don't know.
I think his boss probably makes him do a mock draft
over
at Boston Sports Journal. Mike Giardi, fresh off a fight earlier this week on television with one Tom Curran about Stefon Diggs, who 3 years ago was among the best receivers in football, and I'm not sure how that's relevant to the conversation in 2025. But Mike Giardi, what was your reaction or your thoughts on the Stefon Diggs press conference today?
I mean, having covered him in Buffalo, he's incredibly charming, engaging. He can be playful. He's a smart dude. Like he did exactly what I thought he would do. The question becomes, if it ever gets to this point, what does he do when things aren't going very well? Because that's where he had a bit of a problem in Buffalo, controlling emotions and whether it be on the field or off the field, not necessarily answering questions. His brother tends to get involved on social media. For those of you who don't know, his brother is a cornerback for the Cowboys, and he won't push back on his brother, even when his brother was trashing the Buffalo Bills when he played for the Bills. So I wasn't worried about him. I knew he would. I knew he'd hit a home run today.
Mike, what is your feelings on the impact he can have? I mean, I question whether or not he's going to be ready week one. Look, I like the signing because they needed somebody. But what do you? Let's just theoretically, say that he's going to be ready week one. What do you think is a realistic expectation as far as production? You think we should expect from Stefon Diggs?
Well, I mean, look, if you get him from week one, even though you could argue that he's, I think history tells us it's hard to be the same player in that first year and a half after tearing the ACL, and you generally see guys come out on the other side in year two when they're back to themselves, if in fact they can get back there again. And so the way their room shapes up, though, he automatically vaults to the head of the class, and he's kind of the head of the class by a long shot. So he's a terrific route runner. He's always been. He's super competitive, which again can get him in trouble sometimes with the team or on field stuff. But he'll fight for this, and I think it could pay dividends. It could pay huge dividends if he somehow is able to, be 95% of what he was pre-injury.
Mike, obviously it feels like there's already too many wide receivers in the room, and the Patriots need to address this and continue.
Not too many good ones, though.
That's the whole thing. I know. Yeah. Earlier this week, I said Steph Diggs coming to town would be iron sharpening iron in the wide receiver room, and he said more like iron sharpening talc. Pretty good one from Tommy there. So, who do we think? Who do we think doesn't make it out of this wide receiver room right now? Because I feel like there's already too many guys, and they're definitely going to draft at least one or two.
Yeah, I would say Javon Baker's clearly on notice, right? And I know there's, again, from a talent perspective, he might have well been the most talented guy that you had in the room, but there's so much more to it than that. There's, the league has been littered with guys who, probably could have been damn good receivers in this league who just can't figure it out for one reason or another, or all the reasons, that may come into it. So I think he's got to be on notice. I would wonder about Kendrick Bourne, just in the sense, to me, Diggs is not your true X. Last year he played mostly in the slot, or largely in the slot, and makes me think he's a Z, and that's kind of where Kendrick plays, and that's kind of where Polk plays. And I would guess Polk gets another chance because he's a second-round pick. So I start to wonder, Bourne, and he doesn't. It's not like he paid him a ton of money, so that's one of those deals that wouldn't be necessarily hard to walk away from.
Mike Giardi, Boston Sports Journal, joining us here on WEEI Afternoons. Mike, my very large co-host, Ted Johnson, says that I shouldn't worry. A tackle is going to be here who I'm not going to bitch about by training camp.
A serviceable tackle. Mm-hmm.
Serviceable tackle. So there's really one name that I think we all circle, and that's Tyron Smith.
It's available right now, yeah.
Is it Tyron Smith? Is there another name? Is my co-host crazily optimistic? What do we got here?
He might be crazily optimistic. I mean, look, Tyron Smith they should be making that phone call. I don't know whether they have or not. Mm-hmm. They made it last year. He didn't he didn't answer. He didn't
want
phone.
Who this?
Yeah, went to the
exactly.
Jets though. Yeah,
I know. He went to the Jets because he thought the Jets were going to win. And when you looked at the Jets on paper, there was that chance. And then Aaron did what Aaron does, and the coaching staff, the whole thing. But so does he now look at the the free agent additions of, Williams and Davis and Spillane on one side of the ball, and now all of a sudden he sees Diggs here, and he say, you know what, they're going to pay me $3-4 million more than anybody else will, and yeah, I'll give it a run. Maybe it becomes a more attractive place. But beyond that, people ask all the time, why can't they trade for someone? And I know Tunsil just got moved, so it's hard to say that left tackles never get traded, but they pretty much never get traded. It just does. If you're competent, if you're beyond competent, they don't get out there. We just saw 2 free. I mean, Cam Robinson got paid a lot of money, and I don't think we really thought that was going to happen. And the Moore boys, Jalen and they got paid ridiculous money, and they're not even anybody's idea of maybe even competent. So I don't know. I just find it hard to believe that there's going to be someone out there, via trade, and then that just takes you back to the draft, and it's an interesting tackle class to say the least. A lot of guys with short arms, a lot of guys that might be right tackles, a lot of guys that might be guards. But I guess you just got to find one, and that's why I say this draft is ultimately it's incredibly critical for this group, because they've just crap draft after crap draft. You need some young, controllable players that you can help build around with some of the core pieces that you've, between Gonzalez and May, and then a couple of the guys obviously signed in free agency.
Well, it's since you went there, I was going to ask you another question, but since you went there with the draft, I mean, we're 3 weeks away, and we've been talking about it till our ears bleed. But I got to ask you, as of today, March 28th, your thoughts if. You know what they say? Anyone's available for you at 4, other than the quarterbacks. Anyone's available for you at 4 for the Patriots. Who do you think they take? Since you're talking about need for tackle, I mean, I would maybe think you'd think they'd take Will Campbell, but who do you think the Patriots take at 4 if anyone's available?
I think if Hunter's there, I think that they'd run up the card.
Yep.
I think they view him as a unique talent. His football character is off the charts. I think that Carter, we've talked about some of the off-field stuff, the whole thing with the tow truck driver. And, I talking to some people the last 3-4 days, whatever, you get the sense maybe, I think someone else in that studio might have heard this as well, that there may be some concerns about, a little bit, maybe more concerns they let on about the stress reaction in his foot. So, I don't know. Hunter seems like the cleanest top end, one of the few blue chippers in the draft. And, he'd immediately come in and tell me, you're playing wide receiver, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You can fiddle around with some cornerback, but mostly you're going to do that on your own time. We're going to have you as a wide receiver, and now all of a sudden that wide receiver room looks a hell of a lot different than it did, last year, the year before, the last 6-7 years, whatever it's been.
Mike, what would your reaction be, speaking of the Patriots being excited and running up the card for Travis Hunter, what would your reaction be if the Patriots chose chaos and drafted Ashton Genty at 4 if the other guys were gone?
That'd be fun for us, right?
Yep.
Just from a sheer coverage standpoint, he's a fun watch, offensive skill player. So there's a little bit more sex appeal, if you will, as opposed to drafting a tackle or whatever. But no, come on, you can't. They may have turned the corner to where we feel like at least what they put together on paper and now with the coaching staff that they're a 7-ish, 8-ish win-ish team, although, Andy might still have them for only 2 wins.
No.
But
6.
But that's too much of a luxury pick for me at this point, especially when this draft there's 10 or 11 guys, really when people you talk to, if he's not a lead back, he's someone who's going to be in the committee and be good. So I don't know, not that you spend a ton of money on Ramondre, but you get Ramondre, Gibson's still under contract. Take a 4th round running back and you're fine.
Mike, the age of this roster, my buddy here, Ted Johnson, talked about it for a while. They're one of the oldest teams in the league.
Yeah.
I listened to Chris Long on his podcast with Vrabel, and he kept bringing up Patriots kind of look like an expansion team. They're bringing in all these 30-year-old free agents, third contract free agents. And I just wonder, how do you think that plays out? In theory, it should be good for this year, setting a culture and maybe taking a step forward. But what is the long-term result of being built that way?
Well, I think there's certainly a case to be made for Spillane might be at his absolute peak or maybe even just slightly on the other side. He's 29, but that's, that position, his size, Morgan Moses is clearly like, I mean, maybe he can keep playing, but like you would think this is it for him.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know it's a 3-year contract. So you're probably going to look at it year and a half from now and go, well, you know, like they're moving on from that guy that they signed in that big free agent spurge, and they're moving on from this guy in that free agent spurge. I mean, you could even see like Carlton Davis maybe 2 years down the line. But for what they needed now, I think it was smart. I've said this to you for, I don't even know, 2 years, 2.5 years. That locker room stunk. Like, and it's not on everyone. Like, there were good leaders in the group, but there are a lot of guys that didn't know how to be pros, who didn't want to follow the pros. And like, you can only do so much. You know, I can only tell you, like, hey, you can't be late, or hey, you can't, or how come you keep lining up in the wrong spot? Like, you can only do so much of those guys. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it. Or if they don't think they have to get through to them, then it doesn't. And I think they've added 5 or 6 guys that, like, this is just how it's done, man. It's how we play. This is, you know, like, follow me or I'm going to stuff you in the locker. Or follow me, I might stuff you in the trash can. Like, I think they needed that. And I think they sort of trended in that direction. And now, you know, the draft is critical, but like, there are some good pieces in here, I think, to police the room in a variety of different ways.
I agree with you 100% on that, Mike. And so today the Patriots released Juwan Bentley, which seems like a little bit of a pattern to me. I'm curious what your thoughts are. You know, David Andrews, a longtime tenured Patriot, is gone. Dietrich Wise, Devon Gottschall, Jonathan Jones. And I feel like there's a pattern here for me. Your thought, just what you thought about Juwan Bentley being released, and do you feel like I do that maybe they're trying to, I don't know, perhaps kind of purge some of these old, you know, leaders that Belichick kind of put up on a pedestal for, you know, when he was here?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they want too much of the, well, this is how Bill used to do it. I don't think they want that. Like, you bring in a new coach, and granted, you know, we know he has ties, and they love the fact that he has ties, and he can talk about the old days and what Bill used to do, but like, he doesn't need the room or certain key people in the room. Like, well, we didn't do it this way when we won with Bill. Like, I think that's definitely part of it. I also think scheme, like Juwan Bentley, and I reported a couple weeks ago, he was weighing in the 230s, you know, and he's normally a guy who plays at 250. Like, and I was wondering if they told him, you know, like, hey, you at 250 is not going to fly for us at linebacker. You got to drop some weight if you want to try to make the scheme. But by and large, that's sort of been the vibe. Like, Christian Ellis is smaller and faster. Spillane is, you know, 225. Like, they've definitely got a type there, and he didn't fit it. So between that, not having any guaranteed money left on his contract, and what you mentioned, the sort of let's cut ties with some of these older veteran guys that were here under Bill, I think it's all a package. You put it all together, and it made sense. I mean, I was surprised it took this long, quite frankly. And I'm still wondering, like, Tavai's another one. He's kind of bigger than what they're normally used to. Like, is he next? I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Christian Ellis, but it seems like because he's a little undersized, plays a little faster, it seems like a depth piece for them, and they were comfortable with how he played last year. But just wanted to get a quick read. So Vrabel obviously is on the college tour now, taking in pro days left, right, and all around. Went to BC this week, met up with old coach Billy O, saw a couple of guys there that maybe could be a fit on the Patriots next year. Did you hear anything about the BC pro day, Mike?
I was there. It was the longest pro day that I've ever attended. By about
No way.
Hour. I mean, I am telling you, I'm looking around going, what are we doing? And there was a funny point near the end because they made us wait for the offensive line guys. And that's kind of what we were there for, because Donovan Ezeraku, their likely first-round pick, he didn't do anything. He didn't work out. So we're waiting on Ozzie Trapillo and Kendall, the center, and like literally they were the last people to go. And at one point near the end of it, Vrabel's run down. He's like, "What are we doing? Like, let's go." Like, it was like sort of like, "All right, guys, I've been standing on my feet long enough. Like, let's get these guys out here. Let's do what we came to do, and then we can get the hell out of Dodge." You know, he's eating a sandwich at one point. You know, so it's like, let's just finish it. So that's an interesting. Like, Kendall is super smart. You know, depending on who you talk to, he could be the third, fourth center taken. Now, it's not an awesome center group, so that could still be a day 3 pick, but a local kid, and obviously Ozzie, same thing. I mean, those two grew up as, you know, best buddies, and both have NFL. You know, their fathers were both NFL players.
Studs, both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ozzie's interesting. He's huge, right? Like 6'8", you know, just an enormous guy. I know there was some he worked at left tackle and right tackle, and he did it at the Senior Bowl. So there's some, could he be a left tackle? People I've talked to see him more as a right tackle, but probably just based on sort of how he performed at the Senior Bowl, based on the kind of year he had, he could slide into the back end of the second round. So if you're hoping round 3, that might not happen. So, and again, do you view him as a swing tackle? Do you view him as a right tackle? And, I don't know if you got crazy and thought he was a left tackle, but, then you'd be doing the same thing you did maybe last year with Caden Wallace.
Mike, I don't know. We're trying something new here where we end our interviews with little fun hypotheticals. So hypothetically speaking, if there were one member of the Patriots media corps, or let's just say one member of the NBC Sports Boston Patriots crew that you would like to fight, who would that be?
Wow. Really?
Yeah, well, look, Tom and I did fight. Tom and I fought on whatever that day was, Wednesday. He was not. He did not.
Yeah.
We were not seeing it the same way.
Ooh. What was the official ruling?
It happened.
Was it a no decision?
It happens. I thought I clearly dominated. I'm sure he thought he did as well.
Yep. And Phil just wanted you to get along.
I know, and Phil was the one yelling at me last week, so maybe it's just me. Maybe my bad attitude is rubbing off on everyone.
That could be.
I got my money on Trenny if you guys ever throw down.
Oh, no. I'm not messing with her.
No
way.
I was worried about how you were going to answer that, and I think you did a fine job, Mike Giardi. Appreciate you joining us on a Friday afternoon.